Welcome to episode 15 of the Service Report podcast. Wow, I'm forgetting our own name. We've been doing this 15 times, but today we don't have Darren. But I'm joined by Kurt Stockton. My name's Ed Philbrick. How's it going, KS?
Good. It's wonderful. We're having what we're referring to as June-uary up here in NorCal. The weather's been freaking spectacular. Been getting a little vitamin D, and taking it all in until winter returns.
Yeah.
So no complaints.
We've had summer basically for 2 weeks. Like I could ride in the evening with little clothes on in the dark. It was crazy. But we had a little rain last night. So we're shifting back to getting away from our midwinter drought.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It bodes well for at the 1 year anniversary of the fires in LA. It bodes well for Southern California to have more rain. So that's super encouraging.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I ride, I look underneath the chaparral, like when you go around a turn, and you can see that it's still damp underneath the chaparral if it's on the shady side of a slope. And I'm like, oh, that's why the firemen are happy right now. Is like there's a lot of moisture, especially on the shady side of hills, and it's still just in the ground.
All that north facing. Yeah, I did rode last Saturday, and we were up. I don't know, probably up above 4,000 feet, 4,500, riding in short sleeves and shorts in NorCal in January, and came around one of the bends, and there was still some snow hiding out in what you said, that north facing stuff. And I'm like, all right, that's good. And it hasn't, we hadn't had precip probably in 12 days before that. So yeah, it's hanging out. I mean, it's still a little bit chilly, still using the lazy man's ice scraper on the windshield some mornings with like my Auto Club card or something to get the frost off on the early mornings. But it's all good. Luckily, I have the luxury on the weekends to wait till midday and ride in the quote heat of the day. So
I came around a turn in the dark, and the local trail builders were out in the dark, and they had these pesticide pumps, those white plastic containers that you pressurize, and then they go shh, and they were like, "Oh, we're out of water." I mean, like the soil's so dry, and they're like using the pesticide pumps. There's no pesticide in there; they just have water that they've carted out to their berms,
Yeah.
And I was like, I just appreciate the dedication. So
Yeah. So they're dampening and building, huh?
yeah.
Well, that was a little interesting one. It's like, okay, what have we been up to? So we had an event. I completely forgot about this. We didn't even talk about it. There's a guy up here by the name of Laurent Frieden. He's originally from Luxembourg, lives in the Nevada City, Grass Valley area, and this is the third year he's put on an event that he calls Velo Cosmos. And it started out as kind of a concours for vintage bikes, and he's done that a couple of years. And this year he did that, but he also brought in all speakers about women's cycling. So it was all women talking about cycling. Jackie Phelan spoke, Robin spoke, what's Jules' name? Gravalis. She was the one. She managed the Evian mountain bike team back in the heyday and all of that. And then there was this woman that spoke, Chelsea, and I'm sorry, Chelsea, I'm blanking on her last name, but she's a jumper. She's done the Red Bull Rampage the last couple of years since it's been opened up to women. And you were talking about these guys building trail. I had no idea how that Rampage works, and I'll probably butcher it a little bit. But basically, these riders, they get selected, and then they all get taken out to this mountain, and they're there for like a week before they compete. And they basically they look up at the mountain, and then they're allowed to have two diggers with them, and everyone chooses their own route down this mountain, and they build all their own features. And so they've got shovels and McLeods and tampers and all that stuff, and they go out there. And she says, she goes, the most amazing thing is they somehow manage to have garden hoses all along the side of the mountain so that they can wet it down and tamp it down. But it was like, yeah, you were talking about the dedication of the trail workers. This is something a little different, but I had no idea that that's what they do. I thought everyone kind of rode the same route. I hadn't, paid much attention to that, but yeah, that was quite a revelation, And she was talking about, like, she goes, yeah, we build the whole time, and then you get to do a few pre-runs, and then you race day, they just wait until there's no wind and then someone goes off. And if the wind's still good or there's no wind, someone else goes off. If the wind kicks up, they have to wait. You might wait for 5 minutes. You might wait for 2 hours. Yeah, pretty wild just to hear about that. Something completely different.
Yeah, the art of trail building is just fascinating to me. I grew up 2 miles up a dirt road, and my dad would spend a lot of time building berms and getting the water off the road. And we had a drag behind our Jeep. It was just this huge metal plate, and we would drag the road to try and maintain it. And then, my parents would save up money and hire a bulldozer every couple of years. And, things would go wrong. And I learned a lot about water flow during that. And then, growing up, riding and stuff. But I see these guys working so hard on the trails, and it's just so cool to see. And then I ordered a McLeod on Home Depot because I was like looking on the internet, and they're like $100. And I'm like, $100 is a little more for a tool than I wanted to spend. And I found one on Home Depot for $39. And it was interesting. It got delivered by a jobber, which I guess is kind of like an Uber for shipping. The guy showed up in a big old trucker hat, pulled straight up in my driveway with his diesel truck running. And I go, I've been tracking you on UPS. You're not UPS. He's like, no, I'm Jobber.
Yeah.
And he handed me my McLeod for $39. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to taking that up to Mesa Grande. I own 10 acres of land up there, which is near San Isabel, and I've been building a trail kind of near where my mom always camped. And I got my McLeod, and I'm looking forward to, using some of my skills that I learned helping my dad maintain our road when I was a kid, and some of the skills that I learned watching the HOA struggle with DG around here in my neighborhood,
Yeah.
so anyway, trail building is an interesting art form and topic, and I'm not sure I really know what I'm doing, but I'm interested in it.
Yeah, well, I think the main things is you hit it. You got to get the water to go off the trail, not run down the trail. I mean, I worked for a trail building organization for a couple of years at the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, and I learned a lot. I didn't do any trail building, but I learned a lot just listening and watching, what had been done. And then seeing up here in this area, my buddy Chris Foyt, who I ride with a lot, he's pretty smart dude, and we'll ride this, and it's like, oh, look at that, oh, look at how water's still, this trail's holding water. You've got puddles, you should never have puddles. You got to have some type of drainage. So there is a real skill to it. And yeah, thank you to those who embrace it and have learned and do that stuff.
Coming up in March, we have the Sagebrush mountain bike race, which is East County out the 8, San Diego County. It's probably one of the longest running mountain bike races around. I think it might have had some gaps in its lineage. Was probably originally a Ralph Elliott production, San Diego Bike Club. But anyway, Victor Sheldon has taken it over maybe the last 5 or 6 years. And it includes camping, but he's already out there now working on the trail for late March with just a crew of people, and they're camping and working on the trails, and they're filling in huge ruts, like man-eating ruts they're filling in. And we'll be out there in late March, and we won't know how sore they were.
Was that called the Sagebrush Safari at some point?
Still is.
Yeah.
Still is.
I mean, I think I remember that like when we were first getting into it.
Yeah. It's
That's
an
really
amazing event. I encourage everyone to come do it. I think he's going to have some kind of fondo-y fun ride on Saturday, but you have a spaghetti kind of Western dinner on Saturday night, and then you race Sunday morning, and he has camping. And he gets a pretty good turnout. He had Lance Adet last year. Tinker's there. And it's a great course. It's about 30 miles, and it's just some of the best riding I've ever done in my life.
So it's a mountain bike? Is it like all single track stuff?
Yeah, he tried having a gravel event, but I think the gravel community was a little put off by how hard it was, and so he's taken that out.
Wah, wah, wah. It can't be on the road, but it can't be too rough. It can't have too much single track. It can't be bumpy. Yeah, it can have gravel, but not rocks. It's like, oh my God.
And we need our own start wave.
Yeah, exactly. Need to be able to ride 42s to 52s, but nothing. Yeah. Anyway, we digress. All right. Well, yeah, a little sidebar, but yeah, it is kind of funny, and I guess truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
trail work is a good thing, and that's a great race.
yeah.
Sagebrush Safari, late March.
I keep getting like all these little hints of maybe you should get a mountain bike, KS. Maybe it's this might be the year for a mountain bike. We'll see. Of course, then I'm going to be like, do I get an e-bike or do e-trail bike or do I get a like a bike like you've got, XCL? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I mean, I can't let that one slide by because I rode my gravel bike yesterday for the first time since early December, and then I hadn't ridden it since October with you. And I just it's much more fun to ride the ride all day XCO bike. And then I think, well, I go, ooh, if I ever get an e-bike, it's going to be a enduro mountain bike,
Yeah,
electric. And I can just see myself sliding down that slope of I like to ride the road still, but I like to ride the cross country bike. And tomorrow is gravel and wine, and I have to probably ride my gravel bike, and I was like, ugh, I just not feeling it. So
yeah. As everyone can hear, Robin just walked in the door. Yeah. So I don't know where that would be. I mean, maybe there's a place for both of them. The e-trail bike does sound like a lot of fun. I mean, seems like I often talk with DS and he's either riding the gravel or that. But anyway, well, maybe more events. We'll see. We'll see.
I guess the
Yeah.
main thing for me is that on the mountain bike, it's really easier to get away from the cars. Um, and I find that I just not vibing with the car traffic.
Yeah.
And especially I tend to ride in the evening right around rush hour. And so I don't want to put myself on those roads. And so the mountain bike keeps me away from that car traffic. And it's much more peaceful and relaxing to be away from cars. So
I hear you. I guess we're definitely a bit spoiled up here in that I've just got amazing gravel riding right from my front door in three or four directions basically, which is nice because all those directions are either kind of flat or uphill, which means I get to finish downhill. So that's good. Yeah. So it's when we were talking about trail building, I think the art of road building as well. We've got so many roads that were built by the Army Corps engineers and or logging companies, and they built these roads to withstand these heavy trucks. So they've lasted for decades and decades, and so we can just go. Plus, we got a lot of cool trails.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and just not a lot of rocks. So that makes a big difference. Being able to ride the graveler, but mountain bikes never maybe too far away. We'll see. I got to actually just, like I said, ride the bikes I have more, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, what have you been riding then? Evening rides? What else?
Yeah, almost all evening rides, riding my mountain bike. Done a couple of road rides. It was really nice to get on the road bike and have my body be okay, and like I could ride it fine and climb well, and like I could make the transition to the road bike when I need to. Last weekend I tried to jump on the world famous Swami's ride. I tried to time it on a downhill, and I was like, ooh, I haven't worked on my high end heart rate. Yeah, so I got shelled off the back pretty quickly, and found the stragglers. But yeah. So anyway, that's what I've been doing.
Easy to get the heart rate up. It's a little challenging to get it to come back down. Huh? Yeah, man, I haven't done a group ride in forever. I mean, I've been doing a little. I've still been teaching, indoor a couple days a week, and then probably taking another class because it's easy and I'm like done by 8 a.m. And then just getting out and doing some urban routes here, which we've got some fun stuff with all the irrigation ditches, our only flat roads, and then I've been lucky to throw in some, a little bit longer ones, 3 to 4 hour rides on some of these rides. And I mean, talking about no cars, I mean, we get out there and we see nobody for hours. It's pretty spectacular. I mean, you get the occasional, forerunner come by with a giant plume of cannabis smoke coming out of it as they drive by at 4 miles an hour or whatever it is. But they're pretty chill. Um, yeah, so it's been good to do that, like I was talking about earlier, and the weather's been great for that. So between teaching and just getting a little bit more used to that new bike, I'm really stoked on the Mondraker. Getting it dialed, been riding it with some 45s on it, and getting more and more comfortable. I think the biggest thing for me was to get out and do some of the rides that I'm familiar with. Even though that the weather changes things a little bit, but it's been good fun. Like I say, that bike is it's the happy place. Whether I'm riding with the buddy or just out by myself. It's kind of like you get to escape everything. It's.
Yeah.
I remember when we were kids. You remember the first time you got on a bike and you could ride like all the way across town, or you could ride from San Marcos Pass all the way to Montecito, go across Mountain Drive or something, so much further than when you could walk. And I think and it was more of a freedom of that you could go further distance when you're a kid, and now it's just like, for me, it's a freedom of getting away from all the notifications and you know phone ringing. Luckily, there's a lot of spots we go up here where there's no service, so even if someone is trying to get in touch with you, they can't necessarily do it. So that's quite nice, and I do enjoy it. I mean, although I did try the SOS satellite text feature on my phone last week, and
How'd that work?
I'm not sure. It said that it sent, but then I'm like, oh, I know if we go another mile up this road, it's going to go to this point, and we're going to have a huge line of sight. And then the cell phone service came in. When
Mhm.
you get a call from your kid on a Saturday morning, I'm like, is it just to say hello, or is it like, is something going on? And it was kind of just to say hello, so that was good. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But you have to set that up if you have an Apple device. It's SOS mode, but you can send messages via satellite when you don't have cell phone service. But there are a few toggles you got to switch over. So if you think you might need it, maybe it's worth diving into it now rather than trying to figure it out when you're out there.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
might be hard to activate it when you need it.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's easier to do it to tune it up on your Wi-Fi at home.
yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, I've
yeah,
seen it, but I've never tried it, and I've seen it listed. But
yeah, yeah. And I use that. I have a Garmin as you do, and I use the live track feature on that so people can follow. Like a few people that get a notification when I ride can follow, and doing that to stay in touch. But again, it uses the cell signal on your phone, I think, to transmit where you are. So if you're riding through a section and there's no cell signal, it'll give the last spot you were, and then it'll maybe say, Kurt was here 12 minutes ago, and then all of a sudden you pop up further up the mountain. But I think it's more of a safety thing than anything.
yeah, I
Yeah.
leave find my friends. I leave it on for a couple of my riding friends because like they would be able to help somebody find me, because they know all the trails like the back of their hand. So I just figure like even if they're not on the ride, I just leave it on because my wife could go, well, where is this? And they
Oh,
would know.
that's a great idea. Yeah.
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 Um,
Mm.
yeah,
So,
it's interesting to see the time off that kids have long vacations around here, and it was really fun to see. My office looks out at the trails, and so I'm always like, I take the Ed report, which is a count of how many e-bikes I can like listen and try and dissect what kind of tire that is going by. I listen to the trails. It's part of the reason that I got involved in BWRs. The original course went right around my house, and so we get a lot of traffic, and it was really great to see the young kids with time off. And I saw a lot of young kids on analog bikes, just out riding, and it was cool. I was on a ride, and actually, the story starts this way. A national team kid came past me, doesn't even wave at me. I'm like, oh, whatever. And in our day when we were riding in Santa Barbara, we would always respect the wave. We would, we knew everybody. We generally wave back. I mean, maybe we had an attitude because there was always a pecking order in town, but um, we respect the wave, and you knew most everybody. And I was like, here's a kid coming by in a national team kit, and he's not even going to wave at me. He doesn't even know that I donate to the USA national team. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, with my racing license that I really don't need. So anyway, but then I come along a little farther and I turn onto this trail. It's called 765. It's a local trail cut in the chaparral. And there's these young kids and they're like, hey, you want to go first? Like tell us about the trail. Like they're just like super friendly and chatty. And it was just great to see, young riders with time off of school out exploring on non-e-bikes. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, we've got a pretty robust high school team here. The Nevada Union is a high school, so they are the miners, the NU miners, and when the weather's nice, which it has been, they get out on night rides once or twice a week. But basically, where our house is sandwiched between the two bike shops in town. One is 3 doors away. The one bike shop literally is I could go out in the street and throw a rock and hit them, and then the other one is maybe a quarter mile, but they've got the big parking up at that one, so they go there, and it's cool to see because I'll be like in the kitchen, getting dinner ready or doing something, and I see a bunch of lights start coming down the street, and everyone rides. They've got a light on their bike, they've got a light on their helmet, and you just see swarms of kids. They come by, and there's like, I think they probably put them into, based on ability, 2 or 3 different groups. So then a group will come by, go one way, a group will come by, go the other way. And then at the end of the evening, for 20 minutes, you get ones and twos that come back by as they're heading back. That's pretty cool. And then we have another thing in town that happens, I think it's about once a month, called the bike bus. And the bike bus is, there's a group of adults that have got together, and local PD helps, and they escort the kids to ride to school on the streets in the morning. So that one is also pretty cool, and I've have not had made it on that one yet, but it's a way, like we did when we were kids, right? Of course you rode your bike to school because it was quicker than walking, because you had kind of 2 choices. I mean, maybe when you were way up the hill, maybe it was a little bit further, but it's like anytime you could do that, right? And it was safer, and it's cool to see that kind of coming back. I mean, our little town here is bike friendly, I think, traffic wise. You just either are going uphill or downhill, but so then you got to leave a little earlier or whatever it is. Yeah. Well, that's cool to hear that more kids are out there though, and not just gangs on motorcycles.
yeah, exactly. I throw open the blinds every morning and I watch the kids riding to school because I can see them right out my window. And there's a group of about 6 or 7 kids they're probably on 24-inch wheel mountain bikes, and they bomb down the hill. And I just love seeing them every morning. They're too young to have e-bikes, and they're on their small bikes that they're kind of almost outgrowing.
Yeah.
And I just love it, and they're like clockwork. Like I seem to get up and they're going down the hill. They're like my alarm clock. Yeah. And it just gives me hope that I watch that they're getting skills, because they're going over railroad ties. They're dealing with they're all going too fast, and they're going to hit some soft spots. And it's just fun to watch them on their way to school. So
well, and that's the trails that go right by your house. So that's kind of that floaty sandstone and sand on top with all the little marbles, because there's a school down at the bottom of the hill, right? So is that where they're, and so they can ride there without actually having to be out on the street.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool, which is, some forethought with the planning of the community there too. Maybe it was supposed to be rec, but it's like, hey, the kids could get to school on that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So you're headed to Grasshopper Series?
Yeah. So 2026 Hopper Series starts on Sunday. So on the 25th is the first of 5 races, about 3 hours from here over in Ukiah, which is in Mendocino County, way up the 101. And that town has really embraced what Miguel Crawford has done with his series. Actually, he has 2 of the 5 events are in Ukiah in January, and then again, I think April as well, or maybe the last event, the May event. We have this killer park that the city owns, which is kind of ground zero for it. And then this first event, Low Gap, is mostly run on private property. The start finish is all on private property. It's the red. It's not the Redwood Trails Alliance. I'm blanking, but I mean we start and finish. It's a new course this year. We start and finish on private property in a vineyard and go up these roads. It used to be big. Mendocino County was a big extraction business, with timber, and so these roads were built for these giant timber trucks. So they last there. I mean, it's amazing, and they're super wide. Like you can come bombing down some of these hills, and the road's 40 or 50 feet wide, so you can really take your inside to inside line, and go for it. So that'll be fun, just to get back out there. They've got a new route on this course for this year. Having never ridden the old route before, I guess it doesn't matter for me so much. I've ridden some of these roads in pre-rides and stuff, so that should be fun. And I'll do I do all the emceeing or I help out with emceeing, like the pre-race stuff. I'll do the interviews, the post-race interviews with the top finishers in the pro women's and men's categories, and then also announce the awards. So that'll be nice.
That's awesome. It seems like it always makes it in the media as an important event. We've had past winners of Kate Courtney and Pete Stetna and Brennan Wirtz, and it seems like it gets some attention.
Yeah, Christopher Blevins too. When I first met him was maybe will be 3 years ago now when he did it. So we'll see. Kate's supposed to be there on Sunday. She seems like the last few years she's come out kind of as a warm up event, and she's NorCal. I mean, she came through the NorCal High School League, so that's kind of fun because they also do a mentoring category at this event every year, just for U19 girls. So they get some pros will go out and just mentor riders and ride with them and not do the race. And so it's kind of fun, to see that program going on, which is cool that they do it, and then you get these riders that they'll come back and actually race in years after. And then, the fact that Kate came through that. And then you mentioned Pete Stetna, who our Positive Pete segment is from. He's on his, farewell season or retirement tour or whatever you want to call it, or Pete choosing what events he's going to do. And he's got this one on the list as well. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of people there ready to give them a run for their money as well. But it'll be interesting because it's an entirely different course, where before it was like a road course on Mendocino County roads, so you need some fat tires. But then, the dirt was so nice that it was kind of like road bikes that people rode, and they hope they didn't get flats. We'll see. The equipment is always, we talk about that, and it's fun just to see what the riders choose. So hopefully I'll bring a little content to the service course report and report back to that. So yeah, and it's one of the events in Ukiah are Sunday events, where the other 3 are Saturday events. So I'll head over there tomorrow morning, do the shakeout ride. I think Castelli is sponsoring that ride, one of the sponsors of the series, and then so we'll get to ride part of the route tomorrow. Start and finish at Black Oak Coffee, which is they've been a big supporter of the series, and catch up with the people. And you,
interesting that Castelli is a sponsor. That catches me off guard a little bit. They're such an interesting brand. I mean, we were interested in them, but they were very European, hard to obtain. And then a friend of mine got the license in the 80s or 90s and brought them over here to San Diego, Carlsbad. I don't know what they're up to nowadays, but interesting brand.
Well, it was Squadro was the sponsor, and there's the same under the same parent company, and so they just switched it to Castelli. I'm sorry, not Squadro, Sportful. Squadro was what was being made down in San Diego, I think, was when it was Castelli. So Sportful, I misspoke. Sportful has been the sponsor of the Hopper Series the last several years. They've shifted that. Same people, as I understand it, but they've shifted to the Castelli brand, the Scorpion from Squadra, or from Sportful. There I go again.
Yeah. Oh, Pete Stetna rides Sportful apparel, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Maybe he's on Castelli now.
Mm-hmm.
We'll report back on that one too. They do all the jerseys for the Hopper Series. So they do overall champions jerseys, and then they do event jerseys or series jerseys each year. So yeah,
I don't want to
Oh,
speak completely out of turn about them, but their rain jacket is considered, the forerunner of real effective racing rain gear.
yeah.
I don't know how it's doing now that there's been changes in the rules on chemicals that are allowed in that kind of stuff, but their rain gear is considered the best.
Huh. Well, if I go ride in the rain at some point, I'll think about that. Well, so when you're going out to you got an event going to this weekend as well, huh?
Yeah, tomorrow is gravel and wine. Paul Dunlap, who is Wrench House Mobile Mechanic Service here in San Diego County. He's done gravel and wine. He started it as an event and then he switched it to a race. I still consider all these things events. It's hard for me to call them races, but they're just chip chiming and um, there's a podium, so
Yeah.
we'll call it a race. It's in Temecula. It's at a winery. Drawing a blank on the name of the winery. It's probably a double L or something. Um, it's a nice event. I think I've probably done it 6 or so times. A little bit sandy, not so much gravel. I'm going to do the 40-mile version, which is 60% dirt, 40% pavement. And sometimes we get view of the mountains, San Bernardino Mountains, with snow on them, and it's green, and it's a spectacular time of year up there. He's got a charity that he's supporting. It's called Better Brains, which is a mental health charity that he's donating some money to. Um, Gets a good turnout. I don't care for the band afterwards. It's sort of a French Ukrainian folk mashup, but same band is always there. It's good food and so forth afterwards. It's a great social event, kind of kicks off the race. And I think his tagline, whether I said it or not, is the people's race.
Yeah.
So Jim Miller will be the MC, and there's good vibes.
Yeah.
Good event.
Well, you were saying he's got a couple more events. He's up in the central
Paso Robles
coast,
and Sonoma.
Paso and Sonoma. So I think Paso was in March, and yeah. And are they all gravel and wine? Are they all at
Hmm.
wineries? Do you know?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that Sonoma's a lot closer to me than Temecula. Maybe we'll have to look at those dates and see. Yeah, Paul's a good guy, so it's cool that he's continued to do this and been able to grow it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So what else is going on? The racing season started.
Yeah. It seems like it just finished.
It did. There's no gap.
There is no. It's like, oh yeah, it's the off season. Oh, it's the race season. It's like, what did we? I don't even think there a gap, or just cyclocross was already going by the time like what Lombardy and whatever else was done. It's nuts.
Yeah, I was listening to Kung, the time trial guy. What team's he on?
Stefan Kung.
Kung. Is he on Visma?
Well,
No,
he was on FDJ. Did he go to Tudor, or is he still on
he's
FDJ?
on Tudor.
Those
Yeah, yeah.
Swiss guys are all going to Tudor, right?
Right, right. He's on Tudor. And he was talking about the end of his season. Maybe he was in China or whatever. I don't quite remember if he was, but he had like 8 days off and then he had to be in the wind tunnel for a week, on and off in the wind tunnel because that's what's important to him.
Yeah.
And so it's like, he had a little family vacation, but probably not much of one. And then quickly, the amount of time that these guys need to fulfill sponsor obligations, whether they're doing some sort of special event like Pogacar and Vinigo were doing when they had that Masters event in Spain, sort of made for TV type scenario. These guys have to do sponsor appearances or be in the wind tunnel. Their season is really condensed.
And it seems like things can condense, but it seems like there's no racing into shape. It seems like there's nobody that's, oh yeah, I'm gonna do these February and March races to get in shape for the classics or that. It's like it seems like it's 100 miles an hour or nothing. Like your point about all that testing, and especially when the riders, I think with you talk about a guy like Stefan Kung, or even Remco, when we spoke about this before, how he had to probably go back in the wind tunnel because the numbers from
He,
Quickstep
he,
didn't
he
get
did.
transferred to Bora, right? So like going to Morgan Hill and going to Specialized and doing that, it's like, the West Coast from Europe's not an easy one. And it just takes up a lot of time, especially these time trialists. Um, I think and then it's go. It's like you got to be going 100%, like from the get go. I mean, they're racing in Australia, right? You said like Jay Vine is on fire here, and he was on fire in the Vuelta. At the end of the season. I mean, maybe he had a little time off. Who knows? But it's pretty nuts. We've seen that, and we've seen some burnout going on too with the riders.
Yeah.
More prevalent maybe than before.
Yeah. I think that I used to race into shape. Like I needed racing to get ready to race.
Yeah.
And I think that these guys train so hard that they're ready to race right from the get-go. Some of them are,
Yeah.
I noticed that um, the tall American on Jumbo, on Visma,
Jorgensen.
Jorgensen isn't going to do Paris-Nice. He's like changing up his schedule a little bit, and um, Pogacar's not racing until Strade Bianche, and then he's got he's going to do Paris-Roubaix, Flanders, but then he's going to take a break and he's going to race Rominger, the Swiss stage race.
Roman D. Rominger was the Swiss racer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, these riders are all adjusting their schedules, dealing with a little bit of burnout. I think Pogacar's dealing with burnout a little bit. He got a little bit grumpy at the Tour de France. He was injured with his knee. We didn't know that. He needed some time off. Can he be as dominant? So I think he has to adjust his schedule to be dominant.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the longevity of his career, how that pans out. Because I think that, the burnout, whether it's, we heard of this kind of surprise retirement of Simon Yates a couple of weeks ago. And I think it is real. I mean, even there was something Jai Henley spoke in an interview recently. It's like there's just so much pressure to do it. And it's unfortunate, but I think it's even more now than ever. Unless you have like a superstar like a Vingegaard or a Pogacar, the teams, they just push the riders, and it's kind of like churn them and burn them. It almost seems like that old Eastern Bloc philosophy, Like if we had 100 riders to choose from in the U.S., they could run through a program. They would do that with 10,000 riders in the Soviet Union, and they would just put them in there and push them as hard as they could, and you might burn out 98% of them, but you 2%, the cream rises to the top. But the rest, we didn't hear about those people, but it seems like that's happening now a little bit with these teams. I mean, looking at it from the outside.
Well, they say training with power and the micromanagement, weighing their food at each meal, that's what can get hard on the riders. And then also that pressure coming at a younger age. We used to always be told that, you can't win a Grand Tour until you're 25 or late 20s. Now, look at Del Toro. He second year pro, almost won the Giro. So things have changed.
Yeah. But I think that the physiology, and it's easier to pick out these riders with amazing physiology, but there's kind of no test for mental strength other than time and just how they deal with it. And I think, it seems like the burnout is definitely leaning toward a larger percentage of it is mental rather than physical. When we look back a few years ago to Tom Dumoulin, he was on Visma. He raced. He was still on the team the first year Pogacar won the Tour, when him and Wout and who else, they were all sitting watching in disbelief as Primoz lost that last time trial and lost the Tour, and he was there and he had won the Giro, and he stepped away from it when seemingly was at the top of his game. I think he was a podium finisher in the Tour, maybe in 18 when Geraint Thomas won. I think he won stages, back then, and then, or a guy like Marcel Kittel, a couple of guys there that were, seemingly at the top of the game, and I don't think it was physical. and even Fem Van Empel this year, right? World champion cyclocross. I think she stopped kind of mid-race, and you said it looks like she's coming back, but I think that it's there's more awareness of that burnout, and I think it's more mental, because the physical stuff you can kind of track with all the training. The mental stuff, there's less of a way to track it.
So burnout was a big issue for me, and I'll talk about that in a second. But when you talk about Dumoulin and Kittel, Dumoulin is already now a dominant marathon runner. Like he's poured it all into marathon. He was in the Lifetime Grand Prix gravel race at Sea Otter last year. I wish I could have identified him.
Dumoulin was?
Yes, I wish I could have identified him a little better in the race, because I never saw him. I was there on a hill taking photos, and I definitely was looking for him. I just could never figure out who he was, which is embarrassing, right? But he's quite the marathon runner, right? And Marcel Kittel, he's going to be a coach for the Rockets this coming year. I mean, everyone's drawn back in, step out, drawn, they either, become a triathlete, when will Dumoulin do the Ironman,
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I think, right, like their physical ability is there. And I think that speaks to their bodies haven't broken down, but the pressure, the mental pressure, and it's real. And you got to hand it to these riders that, whether it's them or them in the team that they've assembled around them, that they have the wherewithal to step away from it for their own well-being for the rest of their lives. I mean, what do we know? We know what we read, what they might say in an interview, or what someone takes out of, trying to read between the lines. But ultimately, we don't know what's really going on with these riders, unless, you have a personal relationship to them and they're willing to open up with you about it. So I think that there's a lot more to it. And it takes, for someone that's burnout mentally, but to still have the mental fortitude to actually step away from it, I think speaks volumes to the character of that person and their outlook on life being a little more broad and not so tunnel vision on cycling. And then, and then the fact that they come back to it says that they did make the right choice, at least to me. Based on what you said there with that. Yeah.
I think it's amazing that they have the financial wherewithal to retire. So that's great. It means they didn't overpay their agent and they invested wisely. I was going to say something else about it. I really respect that. And with Yates, like he, rumored to really not want to ride the Tour after he won the Giro last year, but he came through because that was his original commitment to support Jonas. And so he, probably there was some talk that maybe there was some chirping that he maybe wanted to retire right after the Giro. So this wasn't a complete surprise, and they say he's an individual thinker, and he's going out on the top for the most part, and you got to respect that. Some of these riders that, take a paycheck and ride for some obscure French team for too long is that's boring and lame too. So
yeah. Well, he might have had to jump on an Italian team after winning the Giro. Yeah, and that's, I think that topic's been discussed quite a bit, but it's interesting to see it. And we'll see where these riders go. Hopefully we'll see some of them coming back. Your info on Kittel there and Ton Dumoulin. I believe he's also now the Amstel Gold race director. I think he just took, I believe I read that one. He just took that one over as well. I got to start taking notes before we do these things. But
how about you in burnout? How have you ever felt it? How did you deal with it?
I think it was probably a little combo of both, but mostly I think it was mental. Back in the road racing days, like we did a lot of volume, right? We were always taught, well, if a little is good, a little bit more is better. Plus my body responded to that type of training pretty well. I don't ever really remember being burnout bad. I thought I had Epstein-Barr, and it was like this chronic fatigue thing at the in the end of the 87 season, and I took a little break there. Um, the only reason I kind of remember that is because we had a race in Santa Barbara in October that year, and it was like I just tortured myself going back and forth. Should I ride? Should I not ride? Should I ride? Should I not ride? It's hometown race, you know. Ultimately, I didn't do the race. Maybe it was like Columbus Day Criterium or something because it was probably in October. And then it rained that day. Like of 2 days, it would rain in Santa Barbara the entire year. So I was kind of happy. But that was more of a physical thing, you know. I don't recall really being mentally burnt out like from the training um, and the traveling stuff. You know, the pressure was generally pressure that I put on myself versus pressure coming from the outside, where I think now a lot of time these riders they're dealing with a lot of outside pressure. You know, I was never at that level where there was a ton of outside pressure. Um, so I don't have any real
When you pivoted
experience
to
like
when you pivoted to race downhill mountain bike racing, probably originally for Yeti, what was that moment that made you pivot?
no contract on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I went, you know, after the 92 season, I didn't get a renewal with Chevy LA Sheriff going into 93, but of course it was like, you know, the management waited till like November. I felt like I got strung along and then it was like, nope, sorry. You know, I should have seen the writing on the wall on that one. So it was difficult, you know, to get a ride. So I think I did race in 93, you know, kind of as a quote a privateer through the Santa Barbara Bike Club. I think you know you could still race like in Philadelphia as a privateer or independent rider. I think we were called independents. And then it was funny because the Santa Barbara Bike Club was sponsored by the Santa Barbara Independent, the newspaper. And that year we had it was a yellow and a red striped jersey and it just said independent across the front. So it was like this double meaning. But I think that was the last year that really raced on the road was 93. Went and raced Philly. But also had the opportunity to race mountain bikes on the Yeti team. You know, John Parker, who we knew from when he was, you know, before he started Yeti, coming up to Santa Barbara and talking to Doug Knox there at Hendrickson's. And he's like, oh, well, shit, you can, you know, you should be able to race mountain bikes. So I did start, you know, cross country racing. Um, Man, there were so many races at altitude. Big Bear, you know, Mammoth. I think we were out, you know, Colorado, and I had a hard time at altitude, you know, and maybe 5,000 feet wasn't so bad, but 7 or 8, or you know, Mammoth, the top of the mountain was, you know, 11,000, and we never actually raced up to the top, but you probably raced up to not. I mean, I think the lodge was at 9, so you were up on the side of the mountain doing the cross country racing above 10,000 feet. That was terrible. It was just, you know, you'd get going and could never recover. Like we were talking about earlier when you jumped on the Swami's ride and, you know, you're like, oh, I'm not used to that high heart rate stuff. Altitude was kind of the same thing for me. As soon as they redlined, it was like I could never recover the entire race. So with that, you know, and I think I mentioned before, you know, Yeti was a downhill team, had some cross country riders. I mean, they had, you know, Julie Furtado won the first mountain bike worlds for Yeti, but they had quickly pivoted into a downhill team with Jimmy Deaton. Then they had got Miles Rockwell on there and Missy Giovi. And so I was racing cross country as a roadie, right, with a super long low stem on a mountain bike, which we wasn't so smart, but had access to these downhill bikes because they had a stable of downhill bikes. And, you know, Deaton and I rode a same size bike. So, you know, he had bikes and backup bikes. And I was like, hey, can I try this downhill racing to help with my skills a little bit, you know, on the cross country stuff? And I was like, wow, you guys actually get to race and you take a lift up the mountain and you get to ride down versus having to ride up the mountain. So that transition came about, you know, from a lack of a contract and then an opportunity through that Parker offered up with Yeti, which was pretty cool. And it was just mountain biking was just exploding at that point. You know, I mean, there was opportunity for, you know, roadies to race downhill. just because there weren't a lot of riders, and Darren and I did it. We had Bob Roll came in, Paul Willerton came in and raced, Joe Parkin. I bet Joe probably had the most probably successful cross country career coming from road and racing mountain bikes. But it was mostly, we had that. Although I would say probably the most successful roadie that came to mountain biking ever was Allison Dunlap. She was a roadie initially, and went on to be a national champion. She won the Worlds in Vail in 2001, right after 9/11. So, with a little sidebar there, I was fortunate because I worked with Allison as an athlete when I worked for Time, so got to follow that transition. But yeah, that's how that came about, and it definitely, I felt as though it added some years to my career. Where if I hadn't had that opportunity to race mountain bikes, I probably would have got more burnout mentally and more bitter about the whole sport. But being in that golden age of mountain biking and having that opportunity, I felt like it was, do you remember the first time you like got out on a BMX bike and like rode on a track and did that, right? Like we ripped around the neighborhoods and did all that stuff, and you're like, wow, this is just so cool. That's what it felt like getting on mountain bikes and doing that. It was like being a kid all over again. Mm-hmm. And so I think that really helped to alleviate the disappointment of kind of being cut off from the road scene. Before I felt like my time was up. I felt like I had a little bit more in me on the roadside. But then on the flip, I met a bunch of amazing people that are still friends to this day that had I not gotten into mountain biking, that wouldn't have happened. So maybe the little road burnout helped, or the mental burnout, just being pissed off. I don't know.
Well, I think the key word is pivot, and following the tides. So you caught the wave of the mountain bike, you pivoted. Michael Marks recently wrote a piece on Substack. He's working on writing a book, and he's the founder of Belgian Waffle Ride. He was the turnaround artist for Spy Sunglasses. He produced events for the World Surfing Tour. He's got an amazing career, and he said every 7 years you need to reinvent yourself, and you need to pivot. So you were forced to pivot, but it worked out for you, and probably in some ways gravel has caused some people to pivot from mountain biking, and it'd be interesting to see what the next pivot is, because sometimes I feel like gravel's peaking a little bit or has peaked, and some of these athletes are going to have to pivot in a certain way, and where are they going to go?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, because it's like this constant evolution. There's a whole I don't say movement or group of people that are like, oh, we got to save road racing. We got to save road racing, and here's my 10 points for it. No, we could do this, and and it's like, or maybe it's not even maybe. It's not going to be what it was before. It's just not going to be like that, and especially not in the U.S., right? Right? There's still like Little League. Hang on my camera, a little jack there. Little League baseball, right? Like it's ingrained, or football. Maybe it's touch football, but like cycling's not ingrained in the culture here like it is in Europe. Like we're going to keep seeing cycling in Europe, and it's going to be cool. And it seems like the U.S. on the cycling side, right? We're kind of like the innovators of different stuff. Mountain biking, right? We say Marin County was the birthplace of mountain biking, and look at mountain biking now, right? And then, even kind of gravel riding, we all did our own version of that, but it as kind of as a sport, people out in the Midwest doing that, and then the events out west here with, Rebecca's Private Idaho or Crusher or Lost and Found. There's some, the U.S., I think we'll come up with something, because that's just kind of what happens here, just out of necessity and a lot of just kind of free thinking, right? Greg LeMond used triathlon clip-on bars in the Tour de France, and now look at Aero time trial bikes, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of that innovation, and it might, oftentimes it comes not necessarily from cycling, or it'll come from someone that comes into it that just has a little bit a different perspective because, and I include myself in this, oftentimes we get caught in this kind of old way of thinking, and it's important to like get some fresh ideas in there and bounce stuff around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, one of my pivots was, I was a fairly successful junior rider, but I didn't adapt well to racing, Pro 1-2 when I was 18 years old. Didn't, you know, just struggled with that adjustment. And then I had a period of time where I was involved in a bike shop, and then I got invited to ride Team Pursuit, and I shifted to the track for a little while. So shifting to the track was always a helpful pivot for me. Um, Being drawn back to cycling because of the Belgian waffle ride and gravel riding was a good pivot. Accidentally purchasing a nice cross country mountain bike has been a good pivot for me. You know, so these things have helped me avoid burnout, like different aspects of riding all the bikes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we raced, we've talked at great length how we raced cyclocross in the winter. That helped us avoid burnout. Like I looked forward to the off season and riding cross. Like so, riding all the bikes and mixing it up is really a beautiful thing. And even the other weekend when I got back on my road bike, I go, man, this is just amazing.
Yeah.
This thing goes. so
Yeah.
so
That's a great point though that you brought up about that, because it was, right? Like we didn't ride cross during the season. I mean, maybe if you took a little break, you might go do a couple little rides, right? Like I need a week break, but yeah, it was. And I remember that now too. Like it was, you almost had to force yourself to take your quote 2 weeks off the bike, right? I mean, that was kind of, if I remember the off season, it was like 2 weeks where you didn't ride your bike, right? Maybe you started lifting weights after 1 week, or maybe 2 weeks where you didn't do anything. But then we did different stuff, right? Like you said, we did our group cross rides, or I would put a fixed gear bike out on the road, fixed gear bike with brakes, and go do the group rides to work on leg speed and power on these short climbs, riding a 42-17 all around. Yeah, that was kind of fun. It was a different way to get your body to keep on pedaling and keeping it familiar with riding, but to shift I think it was mental, right? Because physically you're still working, but it was just to give yourself a mental break. Yeah, that
yeah.
was a lot of fun. I'm wondering what
And
my next pivot's going to be now.
and as much as I criticize Zwift and don't really vibe with it myself, I think it helps a lot of people avoid burnout and keeps them riding. Like, they're just going to work for a week and they're not going to be able to get any daylight in their life and get out the door. But they Zwift a couple of times and then it allows them to ride that weekend, and keep up with their buddies. It's when you say all the bikes, you got to include indoor in there, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's been my pivot actually, right? It's been a few years. I think I started teaching in 21, couple classes a week. I think I'm back to 2 classes a week that I teach now, but that's helped me, going through purchasing an old home and doing a lot of work on that and spending a lot of my daylight hours, the last several years doing that. Indoor has helped me still enjoy riding outside because, I can go do a ride after, having not ridden for a week and be okay. Like my body's, it's not like, I'm completely shocked. I also do like some various kind of gym work, mostly kind of group lifting classes and Pilates and sculpt type of stuff, which I truly believe has helped, like I did a little sidebar, but I subbed a class last Saturday. So I did an hour of intervals Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., came home, made food, and then went out and did a 4-hour ride from 11 to 3. And I got done and I was like, hey, I wasn't completely wrecked. I thought like, I'm going to be wrecked. I mean, my legs were a little tender on some of those climbs, where they were steep and we were pushing, but I was like, all right. I mean, and I think it was a combination of the indoor stuff and then doing that gym work, so that I can kind of keep my composure when I'm riding the bike, like maintain sitting square on the bike as best you can, and really engaging your core and being strong and not leaning into bad posture, and doing that I think has helped quite a bit. Plus I turned 60 last year, so it's like got to keep up on that shit. Yeah. Ah, how did that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, when you
It's
turn 60, that means it's coming up for me.
yeah.
Um, I do my 1 day of strength training with a trainer on Tuesday, and then I ride mountain bikes, taco ride Tuesday with the guys. We ride for maybe an hour and 20, hour and 30 that night, and it helps me that I've done the strength training that middle of the day. Just my body is ready and engaged. Um, and they also my greatest accomplishments or my greatest days of racing always were double days. I used to ride in the morning, drive to LA, race, and I would race better if I rode in the morning in Santa Barbara before I got in the car. That's just a crazy concept of the double days, and I always had a slow engine that was slow to warm up. So if I warmed it up in the morning, then my warm up in the afternoon to try and race that night or whatever was always better if I'd ridden in the morning. So
Yeah. Yeah. I remember doing that as well. Or some of those days where you would have maybe a double stage day, like at say a Redlands or something. Yeah, I remember having some like well, like a road race with a big climb in it. It's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to put it in the easiest gear and doodle in and then go take a nap and race the criterium. But I was like, you know, I,
the first year I raced Redlands was the year that 7-Eleven signed Alcala, and so it was Jock Boyer, Alcala, Boyer, Finney, maybe even Graywall. They were all there, and we had to run a team time trial in the morning, and then there was the criterium that evening or
yeah,
afternoon. And I remember sitting there just going like, I cannot even start the criterium. And DK, Doug Knox, a coach and influence of for all of us came up to me and he's like, bro, you look horrible. You don't even, you look horrible. He's like, here's some NoDoz. You need to take these. And I never drank caffeine, never used caffeine. And I took those and I was able to finish the criterium, which for me was a major accomplishment. So the double day of Redlands, it cooked me.
yeah. Did you sleep that night?
Well, I don't know about that year, but then another year there was a double stage, like go up to Oak Glen, and then we'd have the criterium or something. I don't remember what the second stage was. I can remember coming out of Redlands really, really cooked and just like exhausted. So Redlands always did me in. I think it was a tough race for me.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough.
So I remember not sleeping, not recovering is what I was trying to remember from.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was. I mean, we had stage racing in California, so. Huh. Well, shit. What else?
Well, the last topic is one that's been beat around pretty heavily, but that's no drop bars at Leadville. So we'll cover that real quickly and then we'll wrap up here. But what do you think about that?
You know, at one side, it's like, well, no, Leadville and Little Sugar, which is the XCM, the marathon cross country event out in Bentonville the weekend before Big Sugar, the gravel ride. So I
But
think
one
it's
asterisk, I did hear, I haven't validated this, that Schwamigan, which is also a lifetime race, you can run drop bars there. And I thought, what?
yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, so it's their events; they can kind of do whatever they want. I think it's unfortunate because since those events are not run under the permitting process of USA Cycling or the UCI, they're not beholden to the rules. And kind of like how triathlon wasn't beholden to the rules of road cycling, it spawned a lot of innovation. And for every 10 crazy ideas, maybe there's a cool one. Um, and not to say that no drop bars in this event is going to stop innovation, because I mean, remember Kate Courtney last year with blips on her fork crown, and she rode flat bars at Leadville, but was riding on her fork crown, which you probably couldn't do in a UCI race. I don't know. There's arguments for it and against it. I don't know. I think maybe we're making too big of a stink about it. And maybe Lifetime's just like any press is good press. It's kept them at kind of the top of the news cycle here for a couple of weeks now. Um, I just think you should kind of let people ride what they want to ride, but that's me.
Yeah, it'll definitely stifle innovation. And your point about triathlon is a good one. Gravel is innovated, mountain biking is innovated gravel, and vice versa. The Kate Courtney grab the Fort Crown doesn't seem safe to me.
I agree.
And Payson McKelvin and Keegan Swenson came out and sort of chimed in on an Instagram post of Payson's that basically said, "Hey, look, Lifetime held a small committee of riders, and we voted that that they should be banned." And Keegan's point was, it's not fair to U23 younger riders who don't have a smaller frame, who don't have all the ability to adjust it's really hard to get those drop bar bikes to behave properly, and it requires a lot of tweaking to get the position right and get them to perform and handle. It's not fair to ask that of every young rider that doesn't necessarily have a second bike and a third bike. And so, it sounded like the riders, some of them were supportive of it. I get a little tired of how easy it is to poke at the UCI and Lifetime and memeify this whole thing, I think some of the rules in the UCI have actually been good for cycling, and, not everything, all the sock height and stuff is not all bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, another argument is, well, isn't that why you work to get on a bigger team, so you can have the support, so that you can have multiple bikes and really use all of the tools that you've worked so hard for to have in your arsenal? I mean, maybe you ban drop bars in the U23s and the amateurs, but you let the pros do whatever they want because they've got the resources. And again, not every pro has the same resources as every other pro, but it's kind of what you aspire to. I mean, and there's riders that probably had the opportunity to ride drop bars and they chose not to. That one's interesting because it's well, I guess maybe in Keegan Swenson's specific case with Leadville, the guy spends so much time off the front. Like, you figure they're going to be off the front, they're just going to be right on the top of those flat bars anyway, right? So yeah, I don't know. Or maybe his record now is safe for the next half dozen years. It's going to blow over.
He's going to break the record this year.
Yeah. Well, you think?
He might have fairings on his bike or his fork or something. There might be some more fairification of his bike. But.
That's true. There was some aero stuff going on last year, which they haven't talked about that. So it's just drop bars. Yeah, I saw I read a little bit on this stuff, and someone's argument was, well, it's going to be a lot more unsafe with the two-way traffic at Leadville now, with riders, going in both directions with wider handlebars. Well, it's like, that's a pretty lame one. It's like, so you just move over a little bit more,
Yeah.
Like, it's like a cat and their whiskers, They know if their whiskers can go through, they can get their body through, right? It's like your handlebars. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Was anyone riding drop bars there before just the last couple of years at?
Yeah.
Has
it been? It was at Weens, or I don't know who it was, but someone did it long before Dylan Johnson, and it's I don't know if Russell Worley, who we all grew up racing with, I don't know if he was a drop bar kind of guy. He might have been on him originally, the first winner of Leadville.
Oh yeah, maybe so. There you go. Yeah. For anybody who listening here, if you can look that up for us, let us know. We'd appreciate it. Yeah. Russell Worley. Yeah.
It was a good chat. We miss DS. We'll have him back. We're looking to have some guests in the spring, and we appreciate all the likes, comments, and feedback, and look forward to seeing everyone out at the races or the events, however you want to call them.
The events that some people race, and I'm sure after you go to Gravel and Wine this weekend, I go to the Hoppers, we'll have some amateur moments, we'll have some what went wrongs, the positive Pete. Maybe we can get a little comment from Pete. But yeah, our segments haven't gone away. They just, we had a little science, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks, man.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.